All right, so are you ready to dive into a world that's totally unlike anything you've ever imagined? We're talking about Flatland this time. You know that classic story about a whole society that lives in just two dimensions?
Yeah, it's a really wild concept when you actually stop and think about it. But the
Huh.
author Edwin Abbott did an amazing job, creating this whole detailed world with all its own rules and limitations, and even a way for them to make sense of everything around them.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who haven't cracked open Flatland yet, imagine this. You're living in a world without any up or down, just forward, back, left, right.
Yeah.
And get this, they use fog to understand distance. You actually sent over those sections on how it works, and I gotta say, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It's true, though. In a world without our depth perception, they'd need some other way to figure out their surroundings right. Think about it. Thicker fog would mean objects are farther away. So basically, Flatlanders have evolved to use those little changes in fog density to see shapes, kind of like echolocation, but with sight.
Hold on, so they're navigating their world using like fog gradients. That's insane. No wonder those mathematicians are considered their geniuses. And speaking of geniuses, you mentioned their whole social hierarchy thing. It's all about how many sides you have.
100%. More sides equals more intelligence, a better social position, the whole 9 yards. A triangle. They're going to struggle a lot more than, say, a square. And everyone's ultimate goal is to be as close to a circle as possible.
Wow, talk about pressure. I'd be counting my sides every chance I got. You also mentioned something called siding, which honestly sounds kind of intense just from the name.
It's basically like puberty, but instead of all those awkward physical changes, you're gaining new sides, new angles. It's this huge moment in a Flatlander's life, a period of massive physical and mental growth. And get this, they even have mentors to guide the younger shapes through it all.
You know what? I wish we had siding mentors here. That's a concept I could get behind. Can you imagine someone helping you navigate all of life's little angles?
Now, that would make geometry class a lot more interesting. But in all seriousness, it's really fascinating how Abbott uses sighting to explore things like social mobility and the pressure to fit in.
Yeah. Which brings us to let's say the geometrically challenged citizens of Flatland. What happens to the shapes that don't quite fit in? The irregular ones. It's kind of sad when you think about it. You've got these shapes being judged or even ignored just because it's something they can't control. Like imagine being a triangle that's a little off in a world that's obsessed with being symmetrical.
Exactly. And that's where Flatland becomes more than just a clever thought experiment. It's like Abbott's holding up a mirror to our own prejudices and how we treat people who are different. But it doesn't stop there. Get ready for the sphere.
Oh, yeah. So far, we've been seeing things through this squares.
Yeah.
Well, dot corners. But then Abbott throws a real curveball at us. A sphere visiting from the 30 dimension. Did you get to the part where he tries to explain what that's like?
Oh, it's one of those parts that just melts your brain. Trust me. Trying to explain up or down to someone who can't even imagine those directions, it'd be like trying to explain color to someone who's been blind since birth.
And the sphere tries everything he can think of, right? There's that section you marked where he's passing through their flat world, showing up as a circle that grows and shrinks. It would totally freak me out.
For sure. And then there's the part where he actually lifts the square up out of Flatland. Talk about an eye-opening experience. For the first time ever, this square can actually see his world from a totally different angle. He finally gets the whole third dimension thing.
This is where I started feeling bad for the guy. He goes back to Flatland, completely changed by what he's seen, and he's got to tell everyone right. But you know how it goes. It's like trying to explain this life-changing dream you had, and nobody gets it.
It's that classic struggle of anyone who's ahead of their time. The people who dare to see beyond what everyone accepts are usually met with pushback, even ridicule. Think about Galileo Copernicus, all those folks who challenged how people saw the world back then.
Makes you wonder if there are squares right here, right now, trying to tell us about dimensions we can't even wrap our heads around. But okay, let's get back to the story. This is where it takes another turn with Sphereland. We're talking a whole world that's curved like...
Well, a sphere.
Exactly. And here's where the book really dives into abstract thought. Because even though the square has never actually seen a sphere, he can figure out what it must be like just using math and logic.
Whoa, hold on a sec. So you're saying he's basically inventing theoretical physics just from this quick glimpse into a higher dimension? Pretty much. It just shows you how powerful the human mind is, We can understand things we've never even seen with our own eyes.
And that's what makes Flatland so much more than just a fun story. It's like a celebration of human curiosity, our need to figure out the universe even when it seems impossible.
I totally agree. And those themes, prejudice and how limited our perception can be and how important knowledge is, those are things we're still dealing with today.
It's true. It's kind of scary how relevant this book still is after all these years. Maybe that's what makes it a classic.
Definitely. So if we're all kind of stuck in our own little flatlands, what can we actually do to open our minds to those other perspectives, those higher dimensions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It seems like Flatland is saying education is key, and critical thinking, and being willing to admit when we're wrong.
Right. It's about being curious about the world, like you're doing right now, by really digging into these ideas.
Love it. Maybe this deep dive is our version of the Sphere, shaking things up a bit and helping us see things in a new light. Speaking of shaking things up, that ending always leaves me with so many questions.
It definitely makes you think. That poor Square is back in Flatland trying to explain what he's learned.
It's tough, though. It's like he's trying to share this amazing truth, but nobody's ready to hear it.
It's the struggle of being a visionary, right? And even though he gets in trouble for what he believes, he never gives up on telling people about Spaceland.
He even starts imagining even higher dimensions. Like he's pushing the limits of his own understanding.
That's what I love about humanity. Even when things are tough, we never lose hope. There's always that possibility of something more. And who knows, maybe someone else in Flatland will hear his message and realize there's a whole different way of seeing things.
So if Flatland is inside Spaceland, and Spaceland could be inside some even higher dimension, does our universe have an upward but not northward too? Something to think about for sure. And hey, if a square can start to imagine all that, just think what we're capable of.
This deep dive has been a wild ride, and I'm definitely seeing things in a whole new dimension thanks to Flatland.